Stranger than any comet, and it's rewriting what we thought we knew about the cosmos. The 31 Atlas, the interstellar mystery getting weirder by the day.
It began with a sight no one could explain. Through a telescope in the Canary Islands, astronomers watched a glowing trail stretching behind a small interstellar object named 3I Atlas. But instead of flowing away from the sun, its tail pointed directly toward it, as if something invisible were pulling it backward. For a moment, every rule of space seemed to collapse. In mission control rooms around the world, scientists froze in disbelief. The footage showed the impossible, a body moving through the solar wind in reverse. Hours later, NASA issued an internal alert, then activated a system never meant for this situation, the Planetary Defense network. It had always been reserved for asteroids threatening Earth, not a traveler from beyond the stars. What could make the agency break its own protocol for something that shouldn't exist? And more importantly, what exactly was 3I Atlas trying to do? Every comet we know follows one simple rule of nature. When sunlight hits its frozen surface, ice turns to gas, and solar wind blows that gas outward, creating a tail that always points away from the sun. It is basic physics, unchanged since the first comets were studied hundreds of years ago. But 3I Atlas refused to follow that rule. Its glowing tail pointed in the wrong direction, straight toward the sun, as if defying the very forces that shaped it. At first, scientists thought it was an illusion, maybe a camera angle or a data error. Then more telescopes confirmed the same result. The images were real. Something inside the object was pushing against the wind of space itself. Harvard astrophysicist Professor Avi Loeb began studying the phenomenon, releasing 2 detailed papers. He tried to explain the mystery with natural causes: dust, magnetic fields, radiation pressure, but nothing fit the data. Loeb finally admitted that science had no clear answer. He called the discovery deeply disturbing, warning that 3I Atlas might be more than just a piece of rock and ice drifting through our system. For the first time, experts wondered if this was not a comet at all, but something built to move with purpose. What happened next would prove that fear was justified. For months, astronomers had been watching 3I Atlas with growing confusion. Its bright, backward-pointing tail had become the strangest sight in the night sky, a constant reminder that something was wrong. Every major observatory from Hawaii to the Canary Islands was capturing its motion, recording how it fought against the flow of solar wind. Then, one night in early September, everything changed. At first, the telescopes showed nothing unusual. The same greenish glow surrounded the object, the same unnatural direction of its tail. But as images continued to stream in, researchers began to notice a subtle shift. Within hours, the impossible happened. The tail of 3I Atlas started to move. It turned slowly, like a compass needle finding a new direction, until it pointed away from the sun exactly how every normal comet should behave. Scientists stared in silence. No natural event could reverse a comet's tail in a single night. The Nordic Optical Telescope in Spain was the first to document the transformation. Its high-resolution frames revealed a clear transition between 2 phases, an anti-tail in July and August, and a standard tail by mid-September. Nothing like this had ever been seen before. Comets can change brightness or lose fragments, but they do not suddenly realign their entire structure. Something had forced 3I Atlas to switch modes, almost as if a system inside it had been activated. When the data reached Professor Avi Loeb, he realized this wasn't a random occurrence. He compared the energy required to flip the direction of a gas tail under solar radiation. The numbers were staggering. It would take the power of an internal reaction, perhaps a release of gas jets or chemical bursts, to create such a reversal. That kind of precision suggested control. Loeb described it as a maneuver rather than an accident. Across the world, astrophysicists tried to simulate the phenomenon. They altered parameters, tested magnetic field theories, and modeled particle emissions. None of the results matched what the telescopes saw. Even with advanced computer modeling, no combination of natural forces could explain a reversal that is clean and symmetrical. The only logical conclusion was that 3I Atlas had responded to something, either an internal command or an external trigger. That idea terrified the scientific community. If the object could change behavior deliberately, it wasn't just drifting through space, it was reacting. Some researchers speculated that the reversal might have been a calibration maneuver, like a spacecraft adjusting its sensors. Others wondered if it was testing its orientation, preparing for a later phase of its mission. Whatever the reason, it moved with purpose, not chaos. News of the event spread quickly through private research networks, but official space agencies stayed silent. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory refused to release its updated trajectory data, citing review delays. The European Space Agency declined to comment. Only amateur astronomers continued to share raw footage showing a comet that no longer followed the rules of physics. To them, it looked alive. As September drew to a close, one final image captured the world's attention. It showed 3I Atlas shining brighter than before, its tail perfectly aligned with the solar wind, as though nothing strange had ever happened. To the public, it was just another comet. But to those who had witnessed the reversal, it was proof that something inside the object could adapt to its surroundings. It acted like a machine, not a rock. That night, Loeb wrote a single line in his private research notes. If a system can change direction, it can decide where to go. The question now was not whether 3I Atlas could move on its own, but where it was planning to go next. The more scientists studied 3I Atlas, the more terrifying it became. The strange reversal of its tail had already shaken the astronomy world. But what came next challenged the very idea of what this object could be. It wasn't just behaving differently, it was built differently. When Professor Avi Loeb compared its brightness and mass with data from previous interstellar visitors, he realized the numbers made no sense. The first known object from beyond our solar system, Oumuamua, was about 100 meters long. The second, Borisov, was close to 1 kilometer. But 3I Atlas dwarfed them both. Based on its reflection patterns and thermal readings, Loeb estimated it could be up to 1,000 times larger, maybe even more. In astronomical terms, that was like comparing an ant to an elephant. No natural body of that scale should be able to enter our system undetected. Its size wasn't the only anomaly. When the James Webb Space Telescope focused on the object, the light it reflected revealed something deeply disturbing. The readings showed 87% carbon dioxide, 9% carbon monoxide, and only 4% water. Typical comets are made mostly of frozen water mixed with dust, the so-called dirty snowballs of space, but 3I Atlas didn't fit that description at all. It resembled a mix used in chemical propulsion systems, the kind of ratio seen in engineered combustion reactions rather than natural cosmic ice. If these results were accurate, it meant the object wasn't a frozen relic, it was something active. Carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide release heat when combined with oxygen, producing thrust when ignited. On a spacecraft, that reaction could be used to change direction or slow down near a planet. The same pattern was now appearing in the spectra of 3I Atlas. It was as if someone had designed its chemistry to allow movement on command. Loeb presented the data to a closed panel of astrophysicists. The reactions were split. Some dismissed the readings as errors or data contamination, but others couldn't ignore the consistency. Independent teams from Chile, South Africa, and Hawaii verified the same results. Every sample of light from the object carried the same chemical fingerprint. "It's too structured to be random," one researcher noted. "This looks like a system, not a rock." Further analysis made things even stranger. Using infrared sensors, scientists noticed the surface of 3I Atlas was warming and cooling at a steady rhythm, almost like a machine managing its own temperature. Normal comets heat up near the sun and cool as they move away. This one did both simultaneously. When part of it entered sunlight, the opposite side adjusted in perfect synchronization. It was regulating itself, maintaining a stable energy balance impossible for a natural body. Even more shocking was its density. Radio wave mapping showed a hollow structure beneath its surface, suggesting that 3I Atlas was not solid ice or rock, but a thin shell surrounding an empty core. The internal void seemed to absorb signals instead of reflecting them. To engineers, this pattern resembled the structure of an artificial hull light, efficient and capable of hiding equipment inside. When journalists asked Loeb whether this could mean alien technology, he didn't hesitate. "We have to consider that possibility," he said. "Every feature we observe, the size, the composition, the self-regulation, points to something designed." His words sparked worldwide debate. Was this the first probe from another civilization, or just a natural coincidence that defied probability? Space agencies avoided public comment, but privately, they began to monitor 3I Atlas around the clock. Its mass, its behavior, and its chemistry all suggested purpose. Yet one question remained unanswered. If this thing was built, what was it built for? And more importantly, what would it do when it reached the sun? By late October, the mystery surrounding 3I Atlas had reached a breaking point. For months, telescopes around the world had tracked its strange movements, yet the most critical moment of its journey was about to happen where no one could see. As it moved closer to the sun, the object entered a region known as the solar blind spot, an area where Earth-based instruments lose sight because of intense light and radiation. For a few weeks, 3I Atlas would disappear completely from view. Normally, this period would be routine for astronomers. Many comets pass behind the sun and later reappear unchanged. But this time, things felt different. NASA, the European Space Agency, and China's National Space Administration had all issued restricted observation orders. Ground telescopes were instructed to pause their tracking, and high-resolution satellite feeds suddenly went offline. No official reason was given. When asked, NASA spokespeople simply said, "Operations are under review." That phrase had never been used before for an interstellar object. The timing could not have been more suspicious. October 29th, the exact day, 3I Atlas reached its closest point to the sun. The perihelion was when all major observatories stopped releasing public data. Astronomers knew that this moment was the perfect opportunity for a maneuver. If the object were capable of propulsion, the sun's gravity could be used like a slingshot, allowing it to change direction or even slow down with incredible precision. Yet while this crucial event unfolded, the entire planet was blind. Some scientists tried to bypass the blackout by monitoring indirect signals. They analyzed radiation readings and solar flare patterns, hoping to detect any interference caused by the object. A few observatories in Chile reported short rhythmic drops in light intensity, like shadows pulsing across their sensors. The pattern lasted for 9 minutes and then vanished. It was unclear whether the source was solar activity or 3I Atlas itself. Inside NASA, the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, quietly recorded thousands of images during this time. However, only a few were made public, and the rest were labeled Restricted Access. Independent analysts noticed something odd about the available frames. In one series of photos, a small bright spot appeared near the edge of the sun and then disappeared without trace. The timestamps matched the exact window of the supposed blackout. No one could explain what the light was or why NASA didn't acknowledge it. When asked, Avi Loeb said something that silenced even his critics. If this object is artificial, perihelion would be the perfect time to perform a controlled maneuver. The sun hides everything: heat, light, radiation, all the signatures that could reveal movement. His statement spread like wildfire across science forums. Some mocked it as speculation, but others began to suspect the truth, that 3I Atlas had used the sun to shield its actions. Meanwhile, smaller observatories continued tracking faint radio waves in nearby regions of space. The FAST telescope in China detected a weak, structured signal that repeated every 90 seconds. It wasn't random cosmic noise. The intervals were too precise. When cross-referenced with Juno's position near Jupiter, the timing aligned perfectly with 3I Atlas's trajectory. Whatever was happening near the sun, it wasn't silence. Something was communicating. By mid-November, the object finally began to emerge from the blind spot. Amateur astronomers were the first to notice it. When it reappeared, it looked different. The tail was shorter, the glow dimmer, and its trajectory slightly altered. To the naked eye, it seemed ordinary again, but the data told a different story. The shift in velocity suggested that 3I Atlas had either accelerated or decelerated during its hidden period. If that was true, then it had performed a maneuver exactly as Loeb predicted, and that meant something inside it was active. The world had missed the most important moment of the object's journey. The question now was terrifyingly simple. What had 3I Atlas done while no one was watching? When 3I Atlas reappeared from behind the sun, the scientific world expected excitement. Instead, what followed was silence and something far more unusual. For the first time in history, NASA quietly activated the Planetary Defense Coordination Office, a program designed to monitor and respond to potential asteroid impacts on Earth. Yet 3I Atlas posed no such threat. Its trajectory showed no possibility of collision. So why was the system triggered? At first, the activation seemed like a precaution. Space agencies often conduct exercises to test response protocols, but leaked internal memos told a different story. According to documents shared with a small group of scientists, the activation wasn't an exercise at all. It was classified as a real-world event. The wording raised alarms. Active object with non-gravitational motion, origin unknown, risk indeterminate. That phrase had never appeared in NASA communications before. Behind closed doors, the agency assembled a round-the-clock task force. Specialists from JPL, NORAD, and U.S. Space Command were ordered to coordinate data flow. Even military satellites were redirected to scan the region of space near the object. For a visitor that was supposedly harmless, the level of attention was extraordinary. Someone inside the system believed 3I Atlas might change its behavior again. Avi Loeb later revealed that several telescopes had switched to encrypted data channels. "They told us this was for security reasons," he said. But that's the kind of thing you do when information is too sensitive to share. It was an unprecedented move. Space science had always relied on open data, but now secrecy had replaced transparency. The world's brightest minds were watching the same object, yet they weren't allowed to talk about what they saw. Around this time, amateur astronomers began noticing strange restrictions on sky tracking software. Certain coordinates related to 3I Atlas were suddenly blocked. Online tracking maps displayed static images instead of live feeds. Forums discussing the event were removed without explanation. The public began to suspect a cover-up, especially when government agencies stopped commenting altogether. By mid-November, reports surfaced that radar installations in Alaska, Greenland, and Australia had been temporarily retasked for deep space surveillance. Such coordination required international approval, suggesting that planetary defense measures had expanded far beyond simple observation. The question was clear: what did NASA know that no one else did? Leaked messages from defense analysts hinted at a possible reason. They mentioned transient electromagnetic events detected near 3I Atlas bursts of radio frequency similar to short-range communication signals. If true, it meant the object wasn't just reflecting energy from the sun, it was emitting it. Some speculated these bursts could be a form of telemetry, the kind used by spacecraft to send data back to their origin. Others feared they were something else entirely, a sign that the object was scanning. NASA refused to confirm or deny these reports. Officially, they maintained that the Planetary Defense protocols were activated out of caution, but unofficially, sources within the agency hinted that something had changed after perihelion. The object's velocity readings didn't match predictions. It wasn't slowing down naturally, it was adjusting course. This revelation changed everything. If 3I Atlas could modify its trajectory after solar passage, then it was actively navigating, and that meant control. The Planetary Defense Network wasn't protecting Earth from impact, it was protecting Earth from uncertainty. As December approached, one final update appeared on NASA's internal monitoring logs. Object stable, continuing observation, classification, anomalous. Then, without explanation, the public tracking pages went offline. For the first time, the system built to defend humanity was watching something it didn't understand, and possibly something it couldn't stop. If this activation wasn't about collision, then what exactly was NASA preparing for next? By the first week of December, 3I Atlas was once again visible to telescopes, but something was wrong. The object appeared dimmer, its surface cooler, and its trajectory slightly off course. Scientists expected normal aftereffects from its solar passage, yet instruments began detecting something far stranger. Instead of visual activity, there were whispers, faint radio pulses echoing from the direction of the object. At first, most teams dismissed them as interference from solar storms, but the pattern was too structured to ignore. The Juno spacecraft, orbiting near Jupiter, picked up rhythmic bursts at intervals of 19.7 minutes, a duration identical to one recorded decades ago by the Voyager 1 probe. When the signal was cross-referenced with Earth-based radio telescopes, including the Fast Array in China and the Very Large Array in New Mexico, they detected the same repeating pattern. Every cycle carried a slight frequency drift, as if compensating for motion, a sign of active transmission. These weren't natural radio waves. They were organized, encoded, and deliberate. Each pulse contained sub-frequencies that matched prime numbers and geometric harmonics. Similar to test sequences used in data communication, To engineers, it looked like a handshake protocol, a signal used by machines to synchronize contact. 3i Atlas wasn't just reflecting radio noise, it was speaking. NASA's public feed never acknowledged the detections, but scientists within the SETI Institute quietly confirmed their authenticity. One researcher described the signal as too intelligent to be random, but too quiet to be a message. The bursts were directed, narrow, and consistent in phase alignment with the object's spin. That precision meant design. Something inside 3i Atlas was emitting these pulses and doing so intentionally. Avi Loeb proposed that the signals could represent telemetry, a way for a probe to report its position and status to a remote source. If that were true, it meant 3i Atlas wasn't exploring aimlessly. It was communicating with somewhere else, maybe even outside the solar system. When Loeb's comments reached the media, the headlines exploded. Words like contact, alien probe, and technological signature flooded the internet. But within hours, most articles disappeared, their URLs leading to blank pages or error 404. Meanwhile, the Juno mission team stopped releasing raw telemetry. The European Space Agency refused to answer questions about strange interferences in its Mars Express data logs. Observatories in India and Japan reported signal jamming on deep space channels. For the first time, a global silence descended not because of absence, but because of control. Someone, somewhere, didn't want this information spreading. Still, independent astronomers continued listening. Using portable radio dishes, they recorded fragments of the same pattern, sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker. Curiously, the strongest bursts aligned with the exact hours when Earth and Jupiter were on the same side of the Sun. That alignment created a direct path, as if the transmissions were targeting both planets simultaneously. Loeb's analysis took it one step further. By mapping the frequency variations, he found that the signals changed pitch slightly every time 3i Atlas adjusted speed. That behavior mirrored how spacecraft automatically recalibrate when receiving or sending commands. It was as if the object was responding to something or someone. By mid-December, the radio burst stopped. Every instrument fell silent. The last pulse recorded by Juno ended abruptly, mid-sequence, leaving no final transmission. It was as if the sender had hung up. Whatever had been speaking through 3i Atlas was now gone or waiting. The only question left was who or what had been listening on the other end. Whatever 3i Atlas truly is, it has already changed how humanity looks at the universe. For the first time, scientists were forced to consider that something beyond our reach might be watching, learning, or even responding. The signals, the movement, and the silence, all of it, points to a mystery far greater than physics can explain. Now, as the object drifts farther from the Sun, telescopes still chase its fading light. Some believe it is leaving forever. Others think it is only waiting, silent, just beyond the edge of our sight. And in that silence lies the question that no one can answer. Was 3i Atlas a visitor, a machine, or a mirror showing us how small we truly are in a living universe? Because maybe the real message it brought wasn't sent through radio waves, but through the silence that followed.